Timothy Otieno, KTN News.
Nairobi City County Governor Dr. Kidero is expected to appear before the Senate County Public Accounts Committee and Investment Committee to push his case to have the national government release 72 billion shillings owed to the county governments through rates defaults. Kidero claims that the national government has frustrated his government's efforts to offer better services to city residents. Well, let's cross over live to our political affairs reporter Patrick Amimo, who is in our city centre studios. Amimo, how did the national government accrue so much debt in rate defaults?
Thank you, Michelle, and good morning. This particular matter has been, we've seen the Nairobi Governor Kidero try to convince Senate in an attempt to recover these colossal amounts of money that is owed to the county government. Part of the money is inherited from the previous administration of the local authority. And this money, mostly where the government, national government is the main culprit of defaulting in payments, is due to, most of it is due to the parking spaces and the land rates. The national government has not been paying these particular rates, and the last time it made the payments was in 2013. After that, then no much funds has been coming from the national government in terms of paying the land rates and parking fee, yet it continues to use the parking fees for the county government. So that's why the governor, Kidero, is a bit concerned, and he says that to him, he feels this is an attempt by the Jubilee administration to frustrate his administration in the delivery of services and proper quality services to residents of Nairobi. Remember, his opponents have accused Kidero of not delivering adequate services to residents of Nairobi to comply with the money that his county government has received, both from the national government and local revenue. Or his opponents claim that Kidero has, for the last 4 years, his administration has been given 100 billion shillings. But then when you look at the service delivery, it's pathetic. So they say Kidero has, like, his administration has failed. They are complaining that there is uncollected garbage. They will be looking at the street urchins who are now becoming another menace in the CBD. We've seen at least hawkers come back to the CBD. So these are things that Kidero administration is being accused of not delivering. But then Kidero counters and says that his administration was, in terms of local revenue, it generates about 14 billion shillings annually, and what it gets from the national government in terms of shareable revenue is 13 billion shillings. So he says he claims if he were to get the 72 billion that is owed his administration, then Nairobians can now start seeing services, better quality services in terms of healthcare, education, maybe markets for hawkers, and also the collection of garbage. In terms of land rates, the national government owes the county government 62 billion shillings, and the 10 billion shillings is due to the parking spaces. This is the matter that Kidero prosecuted when he was before the Senate's County Public and Investments Committee last year, when they were trying to probe the 2014-2015 financial year, the audit queries, and he says that he had pleaded with the Senate to at least assist in enforcing the national government agree to pay these debts, but it's like the Senate as an oversight body. That's why they did ask him last month to come and provide necessary evidence to show, which the Senate can then use to pressurize the national government to honor its obligations in terms of paying these debts. So it's something that the county government is trying to struggle with. We've seen these already. The county government has given a 1-month waiver, which is going to expire mid this month, where it's given 100% waiver because it appears that it's owed about 296 billion shillings in terms of in land rates and parking fees. So these defaulters, they say, if they can be able to pay these amounts, then the Kidero administration feels then it can put things right in the city. Michelle?
All right. Amimo, just before I let you go, are there any plans or proposals from the county government on how the government can pay this debt?
This is a tricky situation because if you look at it, most of the billions that are owed is from the Department of Defense, and it's also something that it's like last month when Kidero appeared before the Senate committee. It's like he expressed his frustration and wanted the national government to come out clearly and say whether it will pay these monies or not, so that when it comes to making the budget for the county government, then he does not factor in the debt owed by the national government in terms of land rates and parking base, because he claims that when it comes to budget making process, he factors in these monies thinking that the national government will pay, but it ends up not paying. So he says he feels frustrated and the national government should come out clearly and say whether it will be paying or it won't pay, so that they now know they can now work from a point of understanding that either the national government has failed to pay its colossal debts that it owes the county government, or it is willing to pay, and if it's willing to pay, under what terms and conditions. So that is the thing that we'll be seeing how the Senate committee will go through it and see how they can settle these differences between the county government and the national government, and ensuring that there is provision of adequate and good quality services to the residents of the city, given that this is a capital city and it controls, it is like the face of Kenya. Michelle?
And Amimo, I mean, this is not the first time that we're seeing a leader, the likes of Kidero, asking the government to pay a debt. Initially, we've had mayors, again, still in Nairobi County government, or in Nairobi, rather, asking for the debts to be paid. We haven't seen that done by the government. Is there any hope that this will happen this time?
There is, okay, because initially the national government at times also pulls drags its feet, and it might not be very, very easy for the county government to get this kind of money that is owed, because even looking at the way the national government has been sharing the national revenue between it and the county government, it's oftentimes it wants to retain at least a huge chunk of the monies it wants to retain at the central government and not to be devolved. That's why we saw there was, at least some time back, there was a push by the Council of Governors to have 45% of the national revenue devolved to county governments. But then the other question here again is on how this money is used, because you find even at national government and also county government, most of this money ends up paying salaries and other hospitalities. Like now, look at the case of Nairobi. According to Kidero, he says that he's spending 1.3 billion shillings monthly to pay workers. That is salaries alone, 1.3 billion shillings. So you calculate it in 12 months, that's about 14 billion shillings. So if the national government were to give him 13 billion shillings, it shows that he has a debt of about 2 billion shillings to pay workers in salaries. And then if he collects 14 billion shillings in local revenue, which amount we've not been really gotten it clearly in papers, because we don't know how much really the county government collects, because it's not out there clearly, but he claims 14 billion shillings. So if it's 14 billion shillings, we only have like about 6 billion shillings for development. So this is something that needs to be looked at, because at least 30% should go to salaries and other remunerations, then at least maybe 60% goes to development for us to realize any benefit out of these. Michelle?
And I mean, for private land rate debtors, usually the government moves in, acquires that land and either leases it or does some development of it to get the money that is required. What is the toughest stance in this case that Nairobi Governor Dr. Kidero can implement or basically take to compel the government to pay this debt? Does he have that power?
When it comes to the private property, especially for those who default on paying the land rates, that's why there's this 1 month waiver, 100% waiver for those property owners to ensure that they pay their land rates and to be in compliance. And the county government has threatened that on expiry of this waiver period, which ends mid this month, then they'll move and start clamping those buildings. Already in town, there are buildings with the notices from the county government indicating that the county government has taken over those buildings and it will be collecting the rent and other developments that come out of this particular building. So for private property, it's threatened that should we get to June 15th and the property owners have not settled their land rates in full, then it will move in and clamp down those buildings and now take over the buildings and ensure that it gets back its its monies that is owed by these particular private individuals. But for the national government, it's a bit tricky, and we'll see how maybe the Senate will go about it, and convincing the national government to ensure that the county governments operate, do their services, render their services to the public as it is required in the spirit and law, because now we have a two-tier level of government. Michelle?
All right, thank you so much. That is our senior political reporter, Patrick Amimo, from our City Centre studio.